Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing television discussions, bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis this side of the upside down.
In this spoiler-filled episode, Cam will be presenting a theory about the genre evolutions within Stranger Things. Let's get into it.
All right, no joke, that was the 10th take, I think, of the intro. We've never been that inept.
Your little munchkin voice really got me. Welcome back. It really took me out. Here we are. Welcome. Here we are. Let's go.
Jumping right to it. The thesis of this theory that I'm presenting to you. I watched all of Stranger Things. I binged it. I'm seeing the Matrix. I'm seeing the patterns. And I've got one theory born out of that. Okay. Because originally I wanted to do a discussion about genre. And I wanted to maybe stage a debate or an argument or something about what genre is the predominant one within this show. Because there's so much of fantasy and sci-fi and horror in this show. And I didn't know if, we toss a coin and one person has to argue one way and one person has... And then I finished season 4 and it all kind of clicked into place. I think it's that the show evolves through those genres. So that's the argument I'm going to make here, is that Stranger Things starts as fantasy, evolves through science fiction, and settles in the horror genre.
Cool. I'm really excited for that. Because, whenever people talk about this show, because we hadn't seen it for a long time, people say, oh, you'll love it. It's got horror. Oh, yeah, it's really sci-fi. Oh, yeah, it's fantasy. And I'm always thinking, well, which is it? And of course, those things can coexist. They often do. But it's one of those things that is really hard to pin down. And so I'm excited to hear you to hear you go through this. This will be fun.
All right. So let's jump straight into it. The first one is fantasy. And we're introduced to this friend group, even before 11 shows up, before the monster shows up, we're introduced to this friend group. And their thing is that they play D&D together. Mm-hmm. They call themselves the party. They all have distinct class roles. Mike is very clearly the leader, but the rest of them are all kind of support classes.
Right.
So obviously we're in the 80s and it's a bunch of kids in a basement, but I think in the genre that we're playing with, they're playing pretend in the world of high fantasy with this endless barrage of D&D references. That's how they make sense of their friends, their lives, their friend groups. But also that's the thing they love and they're obsessed with. We see so many sessions of them playing the game within the first season. So I think we start in high fantasy, weirdly enough, from this kind of silly perspective, but they take it really seriously.
Sure, and that seems important. I mean, the show, there are a lot of characters on the show, but it seems like the most important perspective is the kids.
Totally.
So having them have that perspective of fantasy makes sense for that to be sort of the label for the genre of the show.
And then once 11 is introduced and we sort of solidify our central core cast, she is our chosen one. She is that last missing element of classic high fantasy. To compare it to other franchises that we've discussed in the show or that you and I grew up with, she would be the Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. She would be the Frodo Baggins. She would be Ciri in The Witcher. And bookmark that one because we're going to go back to The Witcher later.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I think that solidifies this fantasy origin. But because we're in a suburb and we're in Hawkins and we go through the city, I think this is kind of an urban fantasy thing.
Right,
because for me, I mean, we've talked about this before with the George R. R. Martin quote about the difference between sci-fi and fantasy is like what the couches look like. I think this is urban fantasy because it is within the real world.
Yes.
And I love how urban fantasy to me, it means realism. It means suburbia. It means tangible, practical life.
Right. It's our real world with some edits, with some tweaks and alterations.
And I think so much of the magic systems you could point to in something like The Witcher or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, it gets pretty esoteric. And I really like how there's a clear real-world visual shorthand for 11 in Stranger Things, where basically the magic system is all about her nosebleeds.
Oh, yes, right.
You know, it's you only in the later seasons you get to the point, like in Harry Potter, when people can do nonverbal magic.
Sure.
But it starts very grounded and simple.
Well, and I like this too with the nosebleeds because it does ground it and make it feel real, because even if you're in a world where magic does exist, where like some sort of, extra supernatural force happens, that would have a very tangible effect on you as a human being, right? Like that would have a biological impact. If you've got all this like weird supernatural energy surging through you, of course you would be just in a very grounded way biologically affected. So I like the nosebleeds as that signifier versus just I got purple light coming out of my hand. You know, like there's a real effect on that, which makes it feel like there are consequences to the thing and it's not all just floaty intangible magic. I like it.
And there is a lot of stuff with the hands, which usually throws me, but I think it's usually pretty grounded here where I can still stay on board. I like that 11 does so many of the Chosen One activities. There are moments where she's trying to train and improve her powers, where it feels almost exactly like Harry Potter feels when he's practicing his Patronus, to the point that 11 even feeds off of good core memories to strengthen and focus her magical abilities.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's so much fantasy in the way the show, the world, and the core cast are introduced. And I think we come back to fantasy throughout the course of the rest of the 4 seasons, but I don't think it's ever as much of a focus as it is kind of in the pilot.
Right. It's kind of like our starting point.
Yeah.
Like that's where you're familiar and you're comfortable. And now we're going to change things up and shake things up. But yeah, it makes sense to have 11 as your chosen one. She's this orphan. She's like strange and kind of an outcast and no one really understands her. And she's kind of being forced into a world she's not familiar with. Right. So it's almost as like, you know, Harry grew up in the Muggle world and now all of a sudden he's in the Wizarding world. And so there's all this complicated stuff in there. Is there anything in the show, for context listener, I've seen season 1 and I kind of dropped off after that. And I don't really remember season 1 all that well. But is there anything in there about prophecy or any hint about prophecy or anything like that?
Yes. Once you get into the program that she's a part of and you learn about some of the other numbered magical beings and what they're trying to accomplish, yes. But I think another, just because you kind of flagged it there, another fantasy element is not just her being this chosen one orphan, but her also, at least at the beginning, being an innocent.
Oh,
where she's a vulnerable, incredibly honest and kind child.
Right.
Like Harry is. He's so, if you reread those early books, he's so overwhelmingly polite.
I know, he's so sweet.
And I think there's a lot of that with 11 early on.
Okay, cool.
So the first big evolution we have forward from fantasy is into science fiction. So after 11 is introduced, we get all of her backstory and all of these programs and everything that she went through and the torture and the jumpsuits and the scientist, all of that is done through a long series of flashbacks. And this is where we learn about, remember the evil scientist guy with the floofy hair?
Yeah, a little bit.
He keeps calling herself her papa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So he's sort of the pseudo-father, and we learn about all the experiments they're doing on her, and they're trying to use her for military stuff, but it seems like they're trying to use her for other things too. We shift gears into science fiction visually through an endless string of Steven Spielberg homages. I think that's one of the big cultural touchstones for the series.
Makes sense. 80s kids. Yeah, I get it.
Because so much of the drama, particularly in the first season, is about the Hawkins lab. There's all the scary medical stuff. It's the hospital lighting and the needles and the hospital Johnnies, the pseudo spacesuits they have to wear, and she's doing all these funky things. We get so much about the government and the military, all of these conspiracies. The show is increasingly interested in Red Scare, Cold War, scary Russians, especially seasons 3 and 4, all about that. So that dovetails us into specific subgenres of science fiction, military science fiction. We dabble in some real techie shit, which I think pushes right up to the line of hard sci-fi. Obviously, this isn't that, but I think they're interested in kind of waving that Matador's flag occasionally. They're signaling at that depth, even if we don't actually plumb that depth.
Yeah.
There's also so much of dystopian science fiction here. There's so much apocalyptic imagery. There are almost beats of kaiju, which is technically a subgenre of science fiction.
That's like Godzilla.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a lot of that here because you have the Demogorgons, you remember from the first season?
Oh, yeah.
The little flower, the petal head with the teeth.
Yeah.
But season 2 has this huge hulking thing, which is more kaiju-y. You know, it's gigantic and tall and overwhelming.
I see.
So we're flirting with all of these different flavors of science fiction. You throw in some light time travel. We start doing dream mind travel-y shit. All the apocalypse stuff, and even little bits of cyberpunk, because we occasionally get incredibly interested in technology.
Oh, okay.
And then comes the big transformation. So we start as fantasy, we've moved through to science fiction, and then I think the breadth of the show is landing within the massive genre and subgenres of horror. And that starts the moment we get to know the monster.
And when does this take place?
Pretty early. I mean, the Demogorgon, once we give it a name and we see that little piece when they're playing D&D and they've got that little pewter figure, they don't understand what the thing is. So they're giving it this name borrowed from the fantasy parlance they do understand.
I see, yeah.
And we see it born out of this science fiction, what the fuck is going on in this Hawkins lab. So we're almost trying to understand this brand new weird thing through the languages of fantasy and sci-fi.
Right, because that's what we know so far, yeah.
But it's not presented as a magical being in that way. It's not presented as a robot or an alien. It's this whole other thing. I think it is almost definitively a creature of horror. It is a work of horror. It is this goopy, organic, mirror world, eldritch terror. It is a monster of horror, and I want to go through some other horror subgenres that the show flits through after this introduction, after we get the first couple good kills from the Demogorgon. We start in cosmic horror. The reason I just used the word eldritch is to play in the Lovecrafty realm, where you have things that are gloopy and gross and, more importantly, glimpsed. We've talked about this in the past when we call things Lovecraftian. Part of it is that they are unknowable, that they have unimaginable power and scale, but the other part of it is that you never fully see or understand them. Every time you get a glimpse at a big bad in Stranger Things, it's in the sky and there are clouds everywhere and there's lightning and it's kind of backlit, but you never fully comprehend it.
Right. Versus if you see like a werewolf, you're like, I know what that is, and I can see the whole thing, and like I may not know all of the rules or where it came from, but like I can understand pretty quickly what the thing is. Same with like a vampire or a serial killer or any other like scary monster. But when you go into this Lovecraftian thing, it becomes much more, I mean, cosmic, like you're saying, sort of. It goes beyond you and the earth. It's much bigger than that. Yeah.
And that escalates more and more and more through the seasons. I think there's also a lot of body horror that the show plays with. I mean, it is, before we really got into the show, I was worried that it was going to pull so many punches that I wouldn't really enjoy it from a horror fan's perspective.
Yeah, because every time someone would say, it's horror, I'd be like, really though? Like, do you know what I mean?
But it is. I was totally wrong there, because the shadow monsters, the Demogorgons, the Mind Flayer, the Vecna, all of these big scary monsters, they're not fucking around. They're incredibly cool looking, and a lot of the some of the villains in season 4 were done practically, which I always admire.
Love that.
But even the CG looks cool. There are fucked up bats and spiders and all sorts of fun shit, and it's scary.
So
it's
people actually like die and get eaten and that sort of thing?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
And those shadow monsters were kind of my way into the body horror because things get more gnarly there. But I have never seen, I mean, it might be that the show has so many seasons and episodes now, but I've never seen a show or maybe a horror property that has this many possessions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Will is possessed and has multiple exorcisms just within season 2.
Wow.
Sadie Sink, her character Max, her brother Billy, is kind of puppeteered through a lot of a whole season, where it's like an ongoing possession and attempted exorcisms, and then season 4 does that even more. It's kind of like a Chamber of Secrets style thing, but each victim of the monster is kind of possessed and then contorted and destroyed. Wow. And we go through their memories, and there's so much like psychological horror. Maybe that's another subgenre to pull in here. Just for the sheer amount of distress that is depicted through these possessions.
Does any of that get old after a while? Because I feel like possessions, they look kind of the same, you know, and so when you have multiple, you're like, oh, another one. Like, does it kind of lose its effect at all?
They code it visually different enough in the different seasons that I think it works. And the trick of the show is that they get you so invested in the characters that even though some of the plot beats you might be a little used to, they might feel redundant, you're invested anyway because you care what happens to the characters.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
All right. I think sometimes there are moments of, we've kind of done this before, haven't we? But I'm still so invested in the characters that I kind of don't
And
care.
also, to be fair, you watched it all in one go, which most people have not done. Most people, binge a season at a time or a chunk of a season at a time, and they have to wait years in between each season.
And because the show's already been going 10 years, obviously not 10 seasons, but
Has it really been 10 years?
Just about, yeah.
Oh my God.
I
These
love
poor kids, adults.
But the audience has grown up with it. The cast has grown up with it. And I think that body horror has really doubled down and amplified as the show has progressed. Season 3, you saw an episode of that when I was watching it the other day.
Yeah.
It had all these exploding gloopy rats and Russians. Cool. I mean, they're leaning in here.
Sure.
There's a character who dies in season 2, and they have so many flashbacks to him just being gutted and ripped apart by a Demogorgon. And then season 4 takes it even further. There are these really cool, like, face-eating kind of Demogorgon head arm bodies in season 3. They really escalate the body horror in a way that impressed me just as a horror fan.
That's cool.
Next, I want to talk about the subgenre that is Stephen King. There are endless Stephen King references and homages through the course of this show.
Sure.
And particularly, I want to talk about the first season, because the town of Hawkins initially feels so much like Derry.
I was going to say, yeah.
And I don't just mean, like, when you think of Derry, you think of the shape-shifting horror and how Pennywise presents to all of these different people and plays on their worst fears. But I don't think that is the most troubling part of Derry, especially because we just rewatched the movies a couple months ago to kind of revisit them this many years later. And I was so bothered and troubled in a good way by how viciously fucking cruel the adults are.
Yeah, that's true.
This almost like generational malevolence and cruelty and I mean, it's this real bitter resentment that they have for all of the younger characters.
Right, and that's the thing that all the kids have in common is they don't really have strong connections to or strong relationships with safe adult figures. Like, it varies, depending on who you're talking to, but they all have these fraught relationships, which is like makes sense for the age they are. You're 13. Of course, you hate all adults when you're 13, but it also makes sense in the context of the larger story of it, which is that all of these parents have grown up within this 27-year cycle. So presumably they were all, kids or young teens during the last cycle. And so they've been around, even if they weren't directly involved, they've been around this evil and this like just, cloud that hangs over Derry. So they are very aggressive. So is there a similar kind of thing here in Stranger Things with the adults?
I think the show does a really smart thing in the way it navigates its perspective, because the kids are so young at the beginning that yes, there is a hostility between generations. But as they grow and they become older, I think there's less of that generational malevolence, especially through seasons 2 and 3, because part of the crew, the heroes who come and save the day, it's like Hopper or Winona Ryder as Joyce.
I was going to say, those characters are a big part of the show. They're not separate. They're like main characters as much as the kids are, right?
Right. So there are safe adults.
Yeah.
So I think that diminishes as you go on. But one of the things I've really been so impressed by is almost the soft reboot in so many perspectives that season 4 is for the show. And I think, because largely it's the kids ending up in high school and the utter savage cruelty that they undergo. I mean, it's a real, it's what high school felt like.
Yeah.
But I was worried that the show was kind of losing its edge. And season 4 has so much edge. Like, even before you get to the monsters, and there's always like an episode or two before you meet the big bad.
Sure, yeah.
And some of the seasons were very soft in that opening. There was a lot of pop culture stuff and meeting some new friends and some just fun kind of B-roll stuff. Season 4 is so fucking vicious in the beginning, even before they meet the monsters, just in its depiction of high school, that I loved that it pivoted back to that Stephen King thing and hit it from a new angle, but even harder, because it was such a sucker punch to them where they thought they were getting their bearings. They thought that, you know who to trust. We're kind of learning the lay of the land here, and they get to high school and it's like a reset.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I loved that we got to go through the It thing all over again.
That's interesting. I have another question about Stephen King. One thing that he does so well, and not in all of his stories, but in a lot of them, is he does an ensemble cast of characters really well, and that he paints a picture of an entire place like Derry, for example, and gives you a real understanding of and connection with and relationship with each individual character, and you get to know them all as people who feel like they're alive and breathing. Is that how this feels with such a wide cast of characters as well?
Incredibly. Okay. I am so resistant to cast additions, and I can't believe how many characters I adore at this point. To the point that, like, Lucas's sister is now one of the principal characters. She's on the team, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, because they keep adding people. Like, Sadie Sink comes in, and all these other people.
And now I can't imagine the show without so many of those characters. And cool. I think season 4 did a really good job of juggling that huge ensemble to make everyone relevant in all of these different plot threads and almost timelines. It felt like where we were multi-continental in the way everything was coming together towards the finale, and I thought they juggled that superbly well.
Okay, cool.
The last Stephen King thing here is there's a Russian code that they're trying to crack during season 3 when Maya Hawke is introduced and they're working at the ice cream place.
I saw the little bit in that one episode I watched with you. Yeah.
And they repeat that Russian code so many times when they're trying to unravel it that it started to remind me of that fucking Beverly poem.
Oh my God.
In
Your January embers, your hair is winter fire.
And I don't think it got that grating, but it was a very funny thing to kind of recall in my head.
That's very funny.
The next subgenre of horror that I think the show plays with really effectively is haunted house horror, which is very connected to ghost horror.
Right.
Because visually, the Upside Down is kind of a flip of all of your existing sets and assets. You're changing the colors. You're adding some weird gloopy tendrils. But it's the same sets. They're just all blue.
Cool.
You know, it's the Upside Down of our same world.
Okay, yeah.
All the houses are the same. All the schools are the same. And sometimes people are on different sides of that divide trying to communicate. You know, there'll be like a light flickering, and that means someone's in that room, but on the Upside Down. And that reminded me so much of that kind of double vision that you and I loved so much in The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, yes.
Where that does it with 2 timelines, and this does it with 2 realms or universes or realities, whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
It's doing that same weaponized kind of repetition of locations with slight differences, usually a huge color wash so you can keep it clear visually. But I thought that kind of doubling reminded me of what I love so much in Hill House.
That's lovely. Is there, and maybe you're going to get to this, do you think you can make a connection between the Upside Down and the Further and Insidious? It's kind of a similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Further is more of its own special realm, but you see Patrick Wilson in Insidious, you know, walking through his own neighborhood and sort of talking with spirits that are alive in that area. So yeah, okay, cool.
And in season 4, you get the backstory of the villain, and you see him as a child moving into this brand new house, and it genuinely looks exactly like the scene in Hill House when they get to the new home and they move in, and everything's all yellow and hopeful, and then you see it all blue and dead, and there's a scary red door, and we do all of that here, and it feels so wonderful. But at the same time, to pull in the Stephen King thing again, that house, when the kids are visiting it at the end of like, hey, we're going to do a final duel now, this is the big showdown, it feels so much like the house on Neibolt Street.
Yeah, okay.
It's just cool. This wonderful smoothie of all of these horror influences I love, where sometimes these comparisons can be detrimental. I think it can be a knock if you have so many other influences clouding whatever your thing is.
It's risky to make comparisons to things that are so great and legendary. Yeah.
But I mean these favorably.
That's cool.
The next subgenre is home invasions. And this historically is my kryptonite, whether it's Stranger Things or Funny Game, or not Stranger Things.
The Strangers.
The Strangers. I think that's an understandable slip up.
That's fine.
Or Funny Games. And I'm not saying there's any funny games here that might traumatize the target audience.
Probably.
But whether it's the Christmas lights, the whole concept of the Upside Down, of there might be someone who you can't see, who's in your house right now, I feel like in this sci-fi, fantasy, horror sort of hybrid way, there are constant home invasions. If there are unseen forces or aliens or monsters in your home, and you can't stop them, you can't see them, we're compromising the idea and the safety of home in the same way that The Strangers is doing when the potato sack guy kicks in the front door.
That makes sense. Are there any moments or like sequences in the show where it's like filmed like a home invasion? Like someone hears something and they're walking around their house trying to figure out what it was?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because one of my other questions is going to be like, as you're describing all of these horror comparisons, which I totally see and can understand, a simpler, maybe dumber, but I think important question is, did you ever feel scared watching this show? Or did you feel moments of tension, or were you spooked by something, or did a jump scare get you? Like, was there anything like that in this show?
I have felt constantly worried for the characters and scared about what's going to happen to them. And they've killed enough people at the right moments that I do feel genuinely worried for people. Usually it's guest stars, people who make a big splash at the beginning of a season. I get real nervous for them in that season finale.
I see.
And a couple times they have nuked those characters, even when they're beloved. So I think they've kept their teeth in their willingness to kill characters. There are 3 or 4 characters just can't die.
Yeah, there's some plot armor and some
that's
people.
okay.
Yeah.
But because I love so many characters, yes, I'm nervous for them. I'm not scared of the horror elements.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point,
you're pretty desensitized. Like, do you think other people might find this scary?
Oh, yeah.
Like people who are maybe not as like psycho about loving horror as you and I are.
I mean, honestly, we've just watched too much. Like, the bar is so high for us.
So high,
that it's like fucked up French horror, like Inside. That's the last horror movie that probably really scared
the
me.
one that really scared me was the latest Hell House movie, famously.
Oh yeah, sure. And this doesn't rise to that level, but I do think there is plenty of fear and concern for the characters, and that's kind of half the battle. That's okay.
Well, and also like what's the rating on this? It's not M for mature. It's whatever the lower.
I mean, they swear a lot. There's a bunch of gore. It's TV, so I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, but it's not. It wouldn't have an R rating. Probably it'd probably have a PG-13.
Well, I think that's not how they rate shows.
I know, but
I think it would be like a TV MA. I don't know. There's also a lot of smoking, and sometimes rating boards get really weird about smoking.
They're like, you can have buckets of blood, but not a single cigarette.
But I do admire that they stuck to their guns, because it would feel not period if no one was smoking.
Yes, that's great. I love that.
And also, teenagers swear a lot. That's part of it,
of
too.
Course they do, yeah.
Also, some of the, just to tie another Stephen King knot on here, the bullies are fucking brutal. There are so many, like Steve Hofstadter's from It in this.
Yeah.
There are there are bullies that just try to kill main cast members.
Do you mean Henry Bowers? Who's the one you just mentioned?
Steve Hofstadter. Oh, that's the other one. Yeah, you're right. Henry Bowers is the main one. Steve, I think, is the second one.
Patrick Hofstadter.
I don't know anymore. There are a lot of characters. All right? I got a lot of names in my head now. We do so many episodes a week, it's a lot of names.
And it has the same name as our nephew, so that's the only reason I remember that. Shout out to Henry. He's too young to listen. Anyway, keep going.
So you've got a lot of Stephen King in here. You've got home invasions, you've got haunted house and ghost horror, you've got body horror and cosmic horror and some Lovecraft. But I also think when you get down to season finales, because as within any TV show, those are the moments where things are really going to happen. Right. If you're going to get a big death, it's almost certainly going to be in a season finale. Most of these finales are structured like slashers. You've identified your big bad, you've unearthed them, you've unmasked them, you know their origin story, and it's them stalking some of the main cast. And you've got divvied up in a couple little groups, and there's a plan, and it's very charming, but some people are probably going to die. And it feels like a slasher because you don't know who's next. And that's one of our favorite genres, so I love whenever it tips over into that. You've also got a lot of the trappings of found footage. Because we're playing in the 80s, because it's at that like VHS level of technology, so much of the way that this massive ensemble cast communicates is with radios and walkie-talkies, and Jonathan is so interested in photography that we have all the technological charm and trappings of found footage, even if we're not actually doing that. It evokes all of those elements that for a horror fan who loves found footage, I still feel like it's in the mix.
Do you ever get to watch any footage or see any photos that he takes?
Season 1, he captures a fragment of a Demogorgon when he's kind of peeping Tom on Nancy and taking photos.
I kind of remember that.
After that, it's less essential to the plot. But all of those elements are still, like, radios are a part of every episode.
Yeah. I mean, one, like, trope in horror I never get tired of, even though I probably should, but I don't, is I was filming something on my camera, and then I went back to watch the footage, and I watched it 15 times over, and there was a spooky thing in the corner. That always gets me. I always find that interesting. So
I agree.
That's
yeah.
fun. Okay.
Yeah, and I like that the show starts there.
Right.
So to kind of wrap this up into a bow, I would argue that at this point, now that I've seen all of it through season 4, the show spends most of its time now firmly in the horror camp.
Cool.
But there are some notable exceptions that I just wanted to caveat to make this a full theory. Season 2 has this standalone episode where Eleven runs away. And it is absolutely the Ciri and the Rats interlude from The Witcher. I told you we were going to get back to The Witcher.
Now we're back.
The whole episode is genuinely the Ciri and the Rats thing. Like almost every beat of that from the Sapkowski novels.
Cool.
It's fascinating. Season 3 Will, once he's always trying to find his way back into the group. I feel like his absence in season 1 kind of permanently unmoors him from the rest of the characters.
That's interesting.
It's kind of like in the Hangover sequels, where the guy from not National Treasure. Yeah, the guy you like from
Riley?
Riley.
Yeah, my first crush.
He's the guy who's missing in the first Hangover.
Okay.
And he's in some of the sequels. But because he wasn't there when we got to know the rest of the team, he never really feels like he belongs.
Okay.
And I feel like Will Byers has that same unstuckedness from the group. And he attempts to get everyone back to normal and kind of bring them back to square one where they were in the first scene in the pilot where they're playing D&D. So he gets all dressed up and he's got the costumes and he makes this whole campaign for them. And that felt like such a wonderful pivot back to fantasy. But again, with this kind of evolving perspective of the show, none of them are interested. Because they're growing up and they're all like into girlfriend drama.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Oh no, his whole arc is incredibly sad.
Poor Will, yeah.
But season 4, I was arguing before, is kind of a soft reset for the show, and I wanted to flesh out that point a little bit more. It brings back that it-level cruelty from season 1 in the bullies. I mean, they're murderous, evil bullies again.
Yeah.
And the way that Vecna, who becomes the big bad of the whole show, through some revelations, we find out, he was kind of there all along. The way we learn about his origins, he's almost introduced as a wizard. Some of the characters are calling him a wizard. The ones who don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge of D&D and fantasy and sci-fi, their shorthand is calling him a wizard.
Well, that's cool.
So we're running this evolution in microcosm. We're speed running it, where we go back to fantasy, we call him a wizard, and then we throw in some more sci-fi shit. We get more flashbacks about the Hawkins lab and everything that happened there and where Eleven really came from, and it feels like we're going fuller and deeper into the sci-fi Frankenstein lab origin story than we've ever gone before. Hopper is fighting a Demogorgon with a sword. The characters play D&D again. The fantasy comes roaring back. The sci-fi comes roaring back. And then, to kind of stick the landing for a second time, the final episode of season 4 is 2.5 hours long.
That's crazy.
And I would argue that episode is a horror movie.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
So I don't know. I want to open up this question to the audience. Do you think, do you buy this idea, this theory that Stranger Things is doing an evolution through genres from fantasy to sci-fi to horror? Or do you think that it's some kind of hybrid fusion of the three? How do you make sense of all of the genres that are being toyed with in this remarkable series? Let us know down in the comments. Mag, if you have a thought to kind of round us out.
Because here's what I'm thinking is, as I'm wondering about this, because this show has obviously been out for a long time and I've never gotten into it. Like I said, we watched season 1 2 or 3 years ago and just didn't love it and didn't continue. And then you decided that you wanted to jump back in about 3 weeks ago and here you are. But I've wondered why it has such wide appeal, because for me, usually genre, especially fantasy, sci-fi, or horror, don't have wide appeal. I mean, sometimes they permeate into the zeitgeist a bit, but they don't appeal to like a mass audience the way that a drama does. Yeah, because it's segmented, because a lot of people who are like not nerds like you and me aren't into fantasy, sci-fi, or horror, right?
I would argue that almost every monoculture element of the last 50 years is within genre. Star Wars, even all the Marvel stuff, Harry Potter,
I just mean
Lord
like
of the Rings,
like something that has
Twilight.
wider, but something like, you know, Severance, or something like
is that
White
monoculture,
Lotus.
though?
That maybe it's a generational thing. I feel like people of our generation don't, because we're millennials, right? Don't. I mean, I'm not saying people don't like genre in our generation. Obviously, I just mean something that has like
Game of Thrones, though. I mean, come on.
but that again, that was like weird. It was like so many people like this high fantasy story. That's unusual, you know.
I think all the things I could name that are culturally ubiquitous are kind of fantasy or sci-fi.
Well, then I guess I don't know what my point is getting to, because I'm thinking, if it is so genre heavy, why does it have such mass appeal? I'm wondering if it's because it is all three of these.
Yes.
Like that's what I'm getting at. Like it's not just for the horror fans, it's not just for the sci-fi fans or the fantasy fans. It's for all of them. And I think it is dipping into all of them enough to sate and satisfy the fans of each subgenre or of each genre, but it's not leaning so much that it alienates. Like you said, it dips into sci-fi, but not too hard. It's fantasy, but we're not actually in a fantasy world. We're still grounded in the real world. There's just fantasy stuff. The horror, it's there, but it's not terrifying, so you're not alienating, people who are sissies, right?
Yeah,
and I say that with love. So
yeah.
I wonder if that's part of it, is that it's balancing that really well. And that's hard to do, I think, because if you don't dip your toes enough, it feels wishy-washy, non-committal, it doesn't have any identity, and that sucks. If you dip too hard, you alienate people who don't like that. So I feel like it's striking a very specific balance that I think a lot of other projects and stories attempt to achieve and don't.
I think that's incredibly well said. That's fantastic. I mean, look at the arc of us. I am a fan of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, and I always felt fed in all three of those respects as I was catching up on this show. But also, I mean, genuinely, just within our lives, in the past 5 years, we started this show as a fantasy show, and in the last 5 years, I've written a science fiction book, and we've basically turned into a horror show.
Yeah, right.
So this is, as much as this is like a water cooler monoculture thing that's kind of for everyone, it's also for us in like 100 different ways.
Yeah, sure.
And I think you nailed it there.
Yeah, and so I really would like to try and go back. There's something about the show that I'm just not clicking with, but...
I want to tag that a little, because I agree. And you were talking about why we kind of stopped watching it. I think part of it is, and I can say this now having watched all 4 seasons, I do think it could have ended at the first season. I think the wrap-up there feels remarkably complete and satisfying. And when I started watching season 2, I love Sadie Sink. I mean, we've loved her since, I think we saw her in The Whale.
Yeah.
She's incredibly compelling and ballsy as a performer.
Yeah, every time I see her, I really like her.
Yeah, she's excellent. And we like Mike, Finn Wolfhard from the It movies.
Yeah.
There are a couple, I love David Harbour from dramas back in the day. So there are a couple handholds that I'm just kind of there for. But seasons 2 and 3 felt a little inessential. And almost the minute I started season 4, I felt like that they just had some fire in their bellies that I hadn't felt since season 1. And honestly, for as much as we can talk about how long the episodes are, and maybe that's not to everyone's taste, it is 9 episodes that are movies. Even the ones that are an hour long or 57 minutes or whatever, they have the scale and, more importantly, the complexity and the ambition of movies. And there is such depth. There is such charm and zeal within all 3 of these genres that we love, that season 4 of Stranger Things is genuinely, it's a production unlike anything I've ever seen. The only thing I could think of to try to explain it to you is the very end of Game of Thrones. I think it feels larger in scope and scale than the end of Harry Potter. It's a Goliath at this point, but it's also arguably its best season.
That's cool.
I was
that's
really
good.
impressed by season 4.
That's good, because it's always scary to me when movies and TV shows get budgets that are too big, because sometimes they focus so much on the style over substance, and like the story stops being good, and they're just focused on but look how cool this dragon looks. So that's always nerve-wracking to me, but it's really, I'm excited that has been put to, the giant budgets that they get for season 4 have been put to good use, and that it's been worth your while. That's really exciting.
I looked it up because season 5 starting tomorrow at this point, when we're recording this. I think tomorrow, sometime this week.
Yeah.
But the budgets per episode for season 5 are like $50 or $60 million.
Oh my God. That's a whole big movie.
We really are operating at a level unlike anything else. Maybe you could compare it to like an Avengers movie, but even then you'd be doing multiple of those per season. So
that's crazy.
For being something this gigantic and colossal and complicated, it's really, it was an extraordinary watch. I thought season 4 was just fantastic.
That's really great to hear. So I assume you're really excited for season 5 then.
Oh yeah. And I like that it's ending. I think that's part of why I jumped back in and wanted to watch it, is because it's ending.
And so you want to be like part of that final season and all of
Culturally, sure. But I think also having an endpoint that doesn't feel endlessly dragged out. Yes, there's a couple years between seasons, but if you had to make 9 movies, doing that in 3 years isn't terrible.
Sure, that's true. Yeah.
But I think it's that it's ending before the numbers get too high.
Yes.
And while
that's important.
I still really care about this cast and the story that they feel like they're really hurtling towards a conclusion of, I don't know. I'm totally bought in now.
Yeah, well,
and
that's awesome.
It really feeds me with sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. So let me know what you think of that theory. And yeah, Maggie, I'm so glad you were on this episode. There was a second where I was going to record this one alone, but I really think you fleshed this out with a different perspective.
Sure, no, I'm glad to have talked about it, and I'm so glad that you've enjoyed this show. I mean, I want to like it. I don't ever go into things being like, I'm going to hate this. Like, I always want to love everything. So I'd like to give this another shot and maybe push through seasons 2 and 3 so I can get to the amazing season 4.
I think you'll be sold by the first episode of season 2.
Okay.
Once Sadie Sink's character jumps in, I think you'll
like
be.
I say, I do like her a lot, so maybe that'll
She's
help.
fantastic. Yeah.
Well, as Cam said, listener, let us know what you think of these ideas of seasons 1 through 4 of Stranger Things, of the discussions about genre that we've just had. If you're on YouTube, comment below. If you're listening on a podcast platform, you can head over to the YouTube and comment over there, or just send us an email, secondbreakfastpod@gmail.com. We do these episodes because we like to keep the discussion going. It's not just us talking. We're married and live together, so if we just want to talk, we would do that. But we have this so that we can talk to more people about all the things that we love. We call it a podcast of life, which is just our home and car. But so send us an email, comment, etc., etc. Speaking of sci-fi and Cam's sci-fi book that he mentioned, check out Lemon Tarts in Space. It's his latest book. It's a light sci-fi dark comedy. So again, if you're not super into sci-fi, it's just a little sci-fi, but it's very, very fun. There's a little bit of horror. There's a lot of bit of drama, a lot of comedy. It's so much fun. It is Alien meets Monty Python. It is Flubber meets Friday the 13th. I'm not kidding. That's what it is. It's so much fun. Check out the book as a regular, paperback ebook, or check out the fully produced audio drama, which is a really fun experience. If you want to support the show in a different way, check out our Patreon. It's $2 a month. You can get bonus episodes twice a month, plus access to the whole back catalog of bonus episodes. We talk a lot about horror and sometimes sci-fi and fantasy and a lot of other things over there, so do go check that out.
And if you're here for television discussions, we did a whole series over on Patreon, going chapter by chapter through the source material for HBO's House of the Dragon, George R. Martin's Fire and Blood.
That was fun.
I think that's some of the best, one of the best series we've ever done.
We were locked in on those episodes. We put a lot of work into those discussions. They were so much fun. So yeah, do go check those out. Thank you to our patrons. Y'all are our favorite. Thank you so very much for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll catch you here in just a few days with another brand new episode.